Good morning and good afternoon, depending on your location in the world now. Despite the pandemic has disrupted our lives, our work and plans, we succeeded to adopt and by holding various online meetings. So thank you for being with us today. So we welcome you to the Aiib annual meeting lead-up event series. The series is organized by the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank in the month preceding the 2021 annual meeting of the Board of Governors to be held on October 26-28 in 2021 and chaired by the United Arab Emirates. Following the first event with the United Arab Emirates, which you can see on the AIIB website, today we welcome you to the second event in the annual meeting lead-up events series, co-organized by the AIIB and by the Ministry of Transport of Jordan. Today's event will discuss strategies to enable the growth of the transport sector with special focus on Jordan and AIB experience in the sector. We have learned in so many lessons from the pandemic that hit us heavily. One of these most important lessons that the must be more resilient to the impact of external shocks, like the impact of pandemic and other natural resources. The situation of the pandemic forced countries to make hard choices by diverting investment in the transport infrastructure development toward buying emergency supplies needed to fight against COVID-19. And now we are entering the recovery period. It is very important to ensure that transport infrastructure development gets the priority investment it deserves now. I look forward in this webinar to share the experience of the representatives of Ministry of Transportation in Jordan and AIIB Bank to enable the growth of transport sector in Jordan, also the challenges they face. So again, thank you very much for this honor, and it is an honor for me to introduce our first keynote speaker, Her Excellency Engineer Wissam Tahtamoni, the Secretary General of the Transportation, the Ministry of Transportation in Jordan. So, Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Muhammad. Good morning, good afternoon, Your Excellencies, dear guests. Allow me first to express my heartfelt thanks for your attendance at this lead-up event, which the AIIB and Ministry of Transport has been holding with the participation of the public and the private sectors to discuss matters and topics related to bank investment opportunities in transport in Jordan and the operation of the bank in the region. The transportation sector is one of the most vital sectors as one of the pillars of the comprehensive development of any country. Over the past decade, Jordan has invested heavily in developing the transport sector, increasing the road network and making continuous improvement of the logistical networks by creating an advanced transport network, accelerating the organization's processes for the sector and simulating investment in the sector. The Ministry of Transport prepares and implements transport strategies and policies in terms of increasing the competitiveness of the Jordanian economy, increase productivity and reduce logistic costs, improving administrative efficiency in transportation operation, facilitating the movement of goods through establishment of regionally competitive trade corridors, and managing and coordinating activities related to transport, logistics, and supply chain in cooperation with the private sector to reach the transport and logistics system and secure supply chain in the region in a way that enhances the encouragement of investment in the transport and the trade sector. Government policies are directed to improve and raise Jordan's position in international economy indicators to attract more investment by enhancing the competitiveness of the transport sector, which require improving the transport network and facilitate for all modes of transport, reviewing laws and regulations related to the sector, and providing incentives to encourage investment into serve further progress and development in the national level. Improving transportation and developing logistics services will improve economic competitiveness, as it is one of the basic components of the regional trade, exchanging of goods and services, movement of individuals and goods, transfer of knowledge and education. It's necessary to commit to continuous work and coordination between the public and the private sector to implement policies, taking measures, and develop tools that enable them to build a network of multimodal transport supported by advanced services. The Jordan Railway project is an example. Enhance air and sea links by targeting new markets and shipping companies, and intensify activities to promote the competitive advantages and added values provided by logistics sector, which it will contribute to increase the volume of trade exchange and work to attract capital to invest in various economic sectors to achieve effective economic results, develop various aspects of economics and social development, and implement high-quality projects and programs. The construction of ports, airports, roads, and railways, in addition to the existence of an integrated logistics services system of high quality, would affect the pace of economic activity and the diversity sources of income. At the end, I wish you continued progress and success in your event to come up with specific benefits to serve this important sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your valuable speech and guidance. And now it's my pleasure to welcome Mr. Konstantin Dimitovsky, Aiib Vice President for Investment Operations. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Al-Sakran. And don't be confused. Sometimes I myself stumble when I pronounce my name, so don't worry about this.
No, it's okay.
So good afternoon. It's afternoon for us. We are from Beijing, so it's good afternoon. Secretary General, Ms. Al-Tahtamouni, dear friends, partners, great pleasure to be with you. And of course, I would prefer to participate virtually. Physically, but it's a virtual event, unfortunately. And let me tell you a little story about being in Jordan. In fact, Jordan was among the very last countries which I visited with the official bank's development mission just before the pandemic. And so the last pictures in my memory with real life impressions were from Jordan, in fact. And very nice and very warm pictures of the country of nice people and great hospitality, unique mixture of, or rather unity of Mediterranean and Middle Eastern cultures. I previously worked and lived in Eastern Mediterranean, so it was really nice. It was like deja vu. I loved it. So since then, I still keep asking myself why I discovered Jordan that late. So it was late in 2019, and when leaving Amman, I remember that I was sure that we'll do the first operation last year in 2020 in the transport sector. And but you know what happened next, right? So over the last 15 years, all of us, we have been busy working on the first emergency firefighting, and then on stimulating and supporting economic recovery, making sure it's resilient and sustainable. So since the very outbreak of pandemic, Aiib has supported our members in their struggle with the impact of COVID-19. As of today, we have approved 40 projects on the Aiib COVID-19 Crisis Recovery Facility. It's totals 10 billion and it's across 24 members. But the work with Jordan didn't stop. So one of those countries benefiting today is Jordan. And I'm proud to tell you today that just a week ago, our board approved the project in Jordan. This is the very first project in the country. It is sovereign-backed $250 million facility under our crisis recovery facility, which we provide jointly with the World Bank. And we hope that the project will help Jordan to manage effectively the sustainable, resilient, and climate responsive recovery from the pandemic. But in the long run, it should help transition from the consumption-based to the investment-driven growth model. And for that, we actually wanted as soon as possible to move to our ordinary operations. We would like to return to our regular business in financing sustainable infrastructure, supporting Jordan in its role as the essential regional link between the economies of Mediterranean and Middle East, and supporting through Jordan's important connectivity project within the trade corridors, this important regional cooperation, which Secretary General actually referred to. And this connectivity narrative, in fact, it's very important to Aiib's mandate. So I would say that Jordan and Aiib has a very good future together, and primarily, I would say, in sustainable transport infrastructure. I very much hope so. That is why my intervention, I wanted to focus on how Aiib can further support you, your country, in achieving your goals. When our bank started in 2016, there were only 57 members. Today we have grown to 103 member countries, and they're around the globe. In just the first years, we invested in 138 projects, and today the portfolio is totaling $27 billion. And we are actively cooperating, meaning financing, 31 members. I would like to emphasize that these achievements, this unprecedented, I would say, growth, would not have been possible without the strong support of our members. And Jordan is one of our founding members, founding shareholders. And he has been providing such strong support to the bank from the very beginning and help actually shaping up the Aiib during this 5-year of startup phase, which we are completed last year. So thank you very much for that. I have already touched upon our mandate in view of the connectivity importance. But let me remind you what our mandate under the Article Agreement, just giving you a few rights. So Aiib is created to foster sustainable economic development, create wealth, and improve infrastructure connectivity in Asia by investing in infrastructure and other productive sectors. And it will provide regional cooperation and partnership in addressing development challenges by working closely with other multilateral and bilateral development institutions. And here I would like to emphasize that Aiib promotes specifically sustainable investments in Asia in both public and private development projects. And This is the second most important part of our DNA. And sustainable means not only green, although climate finance is a key part of our activities, but it's as much about economic and social dimensions of sustainability as it can only be. So the third pillar is private capital mobilization. Our bank tries to catalyze private investment in infrastructure to avoid budget overburdening and provide essential bridging of the viability gap, so that it's very often required for attracting private capital in a long-term and sustainable infrastructure. 2021 is a particularly important year for Aiib. This year we celebrated our 5th anniversary and launched our corporate strategy, which is in the corporate strategy signifies our transition from the first 5-year startup phase to the next 10-year growth period. Also, this year we are organizing our first large-scale event in the Middle East. It's a 6th annual meeting of Aiib Board of Governors, and it will be chaired by the United Arab Emirates. The annual meeting is the bank flagship event, you know. And this year it will take place in Dubai on October 26, 28. Usually it brings together thousands of delegates from all over the world, including finance ministers for Aiib member countries, representatives from private partner institutions, civil society organizations, of course, the leading experts in the infrastructure development and finance. We chose the topic, the theme for our annual meeting this year as investing today, transforming tomorrow, trying to underscore our concept of infrastructure for tomorrow, one of the most important concepts for us today. It integrates the most relevant trends today, the sustainability and digitalization. And at our annual meeting, we'll discuss emerging trends in infrastructure investments and look at the key areas to drive recovery and build resilient societies, including investments in climate change, both mitigation and adaptation, and use of technology and collaboration with private sectors, as well as new financing models and a way to finance infrastructure needs of our members. Today in this session, we'll look at the pivotal role of the transport sector as a critical enabler of national and the regional growth. Transport is the second largest investment sector for Aiib. It is close to 20% of our portfolio today. It's the second largest only to the energy sector. And of course, together, transport and the energy sectors are the ones that are key to tackle the climate change. Aiib can support projects of the key infrastructure requiring long-term financing, which may have not that strong financial return to attract immediately private finance on the standalone basis. In such situation, we look at filling the viability gap or helping to mitigate the early stage risks or country-specific risks, and therefore helping the private sector investors and the national investors to feel more comfortable to invest alongside with the bank, including through the private-public partnerships. And Jordan is quite experienced in financing infrastructures through the private-public partnership, which we welcome. And I wanted also to know that to help prepare projects, we can also tap into the bank special fund for project preparation, with the objective to elevate the capacity and prepare necessary feasibility studies. During this, already mentioned, my last visit to Jordan, one of the projects which I was impressed with was the Queen Ali Airport, and an excellent example of successful PPP. So I hope that together with you, we'll do more of those. And I very much hope that in the event today, we'll discuss challenges and investment strategies to support growth of the transport sector in Jordan for the benefit of the whole region, and the alignment with the green growth to help sustainable development. I wish us all productive session and look forward to working with you on many joint infrastructure projects for tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Limtowski, and sorry for the pronunciation of your name. This is the best I can do for this. Thank you for the speech, and of course, we are very happy and delighted that your experience in Amman was very great, and of course the pillars of the investment that you have stated for the investment for the Asian Investment Bank is very important for us, considering of course blue economy and different things, and relating the energy, of course the futures now for the hydrogen, the green hydrogen, and all of these is related with the transport sector. So thank you, and now we will move to our panel discussion. So please welcome with me our guest today. We will have our guests from Jordan, Engineer Qais Qawqaze. He's the Director of Transport Planning and Studies at the Ministry of Transport in Jordan. And also welcome with me Engineer Tamara Al-Hraimi, the Land Transport from the Land Transport Authority. She's the Land Transport Regulatory Commission in Jordan. And of course, welcome with me Miss Sobi Pervin Thorin, Director General Infrastructure Investment Department Region 2, Aiib. So thank you, and thank you for being with us today. We will start our discussion with our colleagues from Jordan, and I will have our first question to Engineer Qais. What would you like to, Engineer Qais, would you like to share with us highlights on the Jordan transport sector strategy and its alignment with Jordan Vision 2025 and the Paris Agreement? Of course, the energy and the green hydrogen and all these things are related. So please, the floor is yours. Go on.
Good morning in Jordan. Good morning in China. Good afternoon in China. Thank you for this annual meeting of the board governor of the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank under the title of enabling the growth of transport sector in Jordan. Actually, Engineer Mohammed, let us start with Paris Agreement. While it's launched in December 2015, and it came with the aim of providing a clear understanding for the climate change related to the actions and the explicit tracking for the national progress towards achieving the nationally determined contribution at the national level of each of country through applying best practice and identifying the priorities, needs, and gaps in this regard. Actually, in the agreement, Paris Convention, particularly in Article 11, deals with the need to enhance the capacity building, the competences for developing countries that are more vulnerable to climate change, so that technological development, education, training, improving the acceleration, innovation, and promoting economic growth and sustainable development through enhancing and supporting this type of projects that could enhance these issues. For Jordan 2025 visions, which came to deal and addressed four major pillars. The government one in terms of financial and macroeconomic stability, local development, public sector performance and resources, security, size of functionality of the government, and infrastructure mainly linked to transport. And the last issue and priority is related to environment. The other three pillars, which is maybe far from our meeting today, is related to citizen workforce participation, healthcare, employment, and education. And the third one is related to society. And the last one, which is also connected to this meeting, related to business in terms of trade and competitiveness, clusters for growth, capital for growth, and small and medium-sized companies. Actually, Ministry of Transport now working in parallel for the launching of the government economic work priorities program, which launched a few days ago by the government under the aim of addressing major challenges represented in unemployment, slow economic activities, and other issues. And this program, which come as an announcement for the government, was formulated in coordination with partners from public and private sector, and is in the line with the main references for the sectorial plans and strategies, including the High Mandate Book, the Jordan Vision 2025, the sectorial strategies, the goals of 2030 agenda for sustainable development. And we see that the government launched a bundle and a package of projects that will started as soon as possible under three axes of focusing for improving the investment and business environment in Jordan. Now we are working, I give you this longest introduction to link it with what we are working in the Ministry of Transport, and most of these projects that the government announced a few days ago was linked to what we are doing now in the Ministry of Transport for updating the long-term national transportation sector strategy from 5 years, 2022 to 2026. The Ministry of Transport now is working in this updating. The national transport strategy was prepared in 2014, as we know, for a period 2015 to 2030, which is come as a long-term strategy. And during the past 8 years, parts of the projects, including the strategy executive plans, were implemented, and other part of this project was not implemented because of many reasons. Maybe the first one, the financial obstacles in terms of the high cost of developing new transport services, the high cost of maintaining existing services, weak funding and investment in this sector, and the high prices of oil products in terms of fuel, the high operating cost in the transport sector, especially the public transport sector, which is very important and linked directly to the life of people, the high costs of sea and air transportation also. And we are now working on the a big project in Queen Alia Airport, as His Excellency said before, and he said that it's a pilot project. Really, it's one of the pilot projects in the region, not in Jordan. We hope we work in the project for enhancing the maritime transport in terms of having a national transport, a maritime transport project. Also, there's a legislative obstacles, the institutional HR challenges. The population has grown exponentially over the past years, and the demand of transport networks and services has increased. The lack of infrastructure and operational capacity to adopt modern batteries for this. Many things we have. I will go. I will go directly to the project that is linked for the environmental direction. This is the next step. We are working with the Ministry of Environment and the Ministry of Planning to have a package of public transport projects for passengers related to the environmental dimension through inclusion of public transport projects with environmental dimension and looking for the funding and donor organization. We have because it's very important to connect it with the PPP. The first projects, the urban transport project, contained the strategy of the Minister of Transport for the electric bus and the green buses in Irbid and Zarqa urban projects. I will talk in this project quickly. The expansion of PRT project using electrical buses also. We are talking about maybe
we have, sorry to interrupt you, but because we have a limitation on the time, so I just want maybe to thank you for this point. And of course, what we are looking for is to have future transport project which is connected to the Paris Agreement and climate change, which is very important for us in Jordan. And as you have said, the projects will vary from electric bus and different projects. And of course, in the maritime sector, we'll have LNG bunkering, and we are working on hydrogen fuel for the future. Thank you for answering the question in a very excellent way. Thank you. So now, excuse me, and I will switch to our colleague, Ms. Subi. So the question is, what are the common features between AIIB, transport sector, strategy, and Jordan? And maybe you have heard from our colleague Qais about the strategies of the Ministry of Transportation. So please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much for this question. And I would like to say that I really benefit from the keynote speaking of Honorable Secretary General of Ministry of Transport earlier, because and as well as our colleague here, Mr. Tahal. I don't know how to whether I address you as Taha, which is simpler, or the other one that I'm a little bit concerned to pronounce. I can say that yes, we really benefit from listening to this, and really it's a very ambitious plan, because Madam Secretary General also talked about the increase the competitiveness through using transport as a mean, and talk about also the regional competitive trade through good transport or those. And our colleague here, Mr. Tahal, also talking about the master plan or the transport strategy, right? Transport strategy of Jordan up to 2026 that go into so many directions. I have to say that when I listen to all this, I felt a lot of synergy between Jordanian transport strategy and AIB focus, because I think that our VP Konstantin Limitovsky already mentioned earlier, he talked about the cross-border connectivity, and this is actually in Madam Secretary General talk about. I can see that Jordan has a very good strategic location, because you are really can offer yourself as a land link. Well, you are not landlocked, but of course your option to get to the port is very small, but of course it's still not a landlocked country at all. But then being surrounded or being in the center of so many activity, of course is an opportunity, but it is also a challenge of having a big neighbor, and some of them also a little bit troublesome neighbor is also a challenge, but if you can turn that challenge into opportunity, it's a big opportunity. So I think that to offer yourself as a land link, what will be needed? This concept of cross-border connectivity is actually, it is the focus of AIB as well. When AIB set up 6 years ago or close to 6 years ago, I think at that time we have three thematic, and then one thematic added later on this year. The three thematic, one is cross-border connectivity, one is clean or environmentally friendly kind of thing, and also mobilizing private sector capital. So I would like to say that when you ask about what is the synergy between or what is some kind of how to say strategy that we can really cross-support each other, I can see clearly all these three areas. AIB would like to invest in infrastructure that is cross-border, that is linking more than just one country, that is expanding the market, because we see transport is certainly a way to expand market. You go from village to a bigger town, bigger city, the whole country, and then cross over the country is mean the market is improving and or enlarging. And we can see that in your strategy of regional competitiveness, using transport to promote that is actually in line with what AIB would like to invest. You also talk a lot, I think our colleague Mr. Taha talked a lot about Paris alignment. This is going to be, whether you agree, you disagree, I think the world is moving to that direction. Moving to the direction of lower carbon. And I think that AIB also AIB has its own strategy, and the strategy of AIB is that by 2025, 50% of AIB investment has to be investment that we prove that we contribute to making something, have positive contribution to improve the climate change. So that is also in line with your country strategy. Jordan has a Jordan Vision 2025 that is also talking about that. Jordan has a National Green Growth Plan 2021 to 2025, also want to reduce the GHG reduction, and GHG reduction will be continued to reduce until 2030. So Jordan will have to move more and more into electrify kind of mobility. And this kind of electrified mobility will be something that AIB very much interested to invest. And I could mention that we already have two projects, one in China, that we invest in electric bus in Liaoning province. And this one just approved, the project in China just approved 2 weeks ago. Another project that we are currently working on is India. And that is also about the electrical bus. So electrified mobility is one thing that you mentioned about during the keynote speak, and also Mr. Taha mentioned that AIB will also would like to walk into that. The private sector mobility, private capital mobility is certainly, this is what AIB also have the target that by 2030, that is 9 years from now, by 2030, our investment should be 50% of AIB investment will be in the private sector domain. Right now, we have about 25% only. So we have to increase to double the size that we do today into 50%. Right now, our investment composition is 75% public sector investment, 25% private sector investment. By 2030, we have to move until 50-50. So this is also the area that I can see the synergy between AIB and your transport strategy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I totally agree that there's a lot of synergies between Jordan and AIIB. The Paris Agreement and the framework that was described thoroughly by Mr. Qais is one of the pillars now that we are now working in Jordan. So I totally agree with you. So now we will go to our next panelist, to Engineer Tamara. So Engineer Tamara, in particular, in land transport sector, we have talked in general before. Now in the transport sector, in the land transport sector, what are the areas where investment should focus, and what are the current constraints from your point of view and your experience? Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It's very nice to be with you today. I'm Engineer Tamara from Land Transport Regulatory Commission, as you said. We in LTRC focusing on public transport majority in the urban areas. We have two projects that, as Engineer Qais said, we have the urban transport in Jordan, in Zarqa Governorate and in Aiib Governorate. Also, we have a big project is the BRT with the Amman GAM. It is a PPP. It's going to be a PPP project. Most of the public transport here in Jordan are individuals. Our colleagues and with our colleagues, we are working in MOT to rise the public transport shares in the economy and to make it more efficient and more secure and more environmental. We are have another project in Jarash. It is a master plan containing public transport operating. A new vehicle is going to be introduced with a high level of services is going to be, and a new and infrastructure containing new bus stops and new terminals, all of that. These are the main sectors we are constraining on. Okay.
Thank you, Tamara. Thank you for this inside information and these projects. I totally agree. The master plan is a very important step that for the public transportation, and it can be easily taken as a step for the next projects and build up projects based on the national interest and the international conventions and agreements that Jordan is linked to. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So,
well, I remember about our project with the MOT for the long-term strategy. It's going to be launched in a few days. It's contain all of our projects for the land and also for the other land and air. It's going to be new steps into the future, as I said, because we are introducing in our projects, we are introducing electric buses for Zarqa and Aiib. So it's very important to have these strategies to be our first step on the road for the movement.
Yes, okay. Excellent. Thank you. Of course, electricity and electrifying and buses are the good example for environmental interaction with transportation. But again, as we in the beginning of this seminar, hydrogen and different resources and different sources of energy, especially green hydrogen and other sources, can be with an added value, and we should start having it in our policies and for the future. So now I come back to Ms. Subi. What are in Aiib opinion the enablers to drive investment in the sector? You have different experience in all the region, and it's a very big region, and you have more than 103 partners or members in the bank. So in your opinion, what are the investment or the enabler of the investment in this sector?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think this is a very, very important question, especially if we want to talk about also a big sector like transport that have so many players in here. So many players from the government sector to private sector to the beneficiary of the general public and all those. My personal experience that I work in many countries. Some country is a centrally planned economy, some country is market economy, but no matter whichever system, my personal opinion is the first thing is that the message, the big message from the top level of the government, it will be very important. The top level government will have to signal that, and the signal is not just empty talk, they have to follow with action, right? If the top message is that Jordan would like to develop transport sector and would like transport sector to be engine of growth, we would like to make sure that we will increase, Jordan will increase its competitiveness. Jordan will want to be land link for the neighboring country, will be the route to go to Europe, to etc. This big message has to be loud and clear from the top level of the government. Then it has to also follow by action. It cannot be empty talk. They have to also allocate funding to lead some kind of flagship project. You know, in here I know that you have the development of the port, and you want to have a port development plan, you know, all those kind of things. But you cannot be empty talk. It has to have money coming in. And in case of Jordan, I can say that transport sector is so important because it's carry more than 60% of the freight traffic, road transport. And now you want to do a railway. And of course, railway is important in terms of climate also, in terms of because you may use less of the fossil fuel in case of railway. If you do a long distance, you do cross-border connectivity, it is important. But the message have to be loud and clear, and you put in the money. I think the government have to take a lead role before you can make the private sector feel confident. Right? So here, when you look into the way the government of Jordan put money into transport, average out is less than 1% of GDP that put on transport. That is too small for any country, and especially our middle income and all those, because you really need a ramp up period. And my experience with working in many countries, China itself, of course, China you can say is a big country, but at one point China put 3% of GDP into transport sector. That is huge. 1% of GDP in transport sector, what you can get? You either can maintain the system and then you cannot have enough to invest a new one. Or you invest in a new one, new infrastructure at the cost of not enough money to maintain the system. So I think the first enabler is a top message that come with action and come with money. Then the second one is that top message that is not financial part will be the regulatory part. If you want the private sector, because no infrastructure in the world that the government have deep enough pocket to put in infrastructure to satisfy all the need. So you need to mobilize private sector. But how to mobilize private sector? You need to give them some confidence that this is the direction of the government. The regulatory reform of the government is good to enable the private sector to put in money to invest in transport sector. So all these two minimum, these two dimensions has to be the first point to increase to encourage or to create the enabling investment. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I think the message is loud and clear. And of course, in Jordan, because I work with the maritime sector, and I think we have achieved a lot in the maritime sector in terms of transportation, because the message from the government was very loud and clear that we need to improve that sector. So it was I think it was a success story, and the participation of the public and between the public and private sector was excellent in the maritime sector. And of course, as His Excellency and our colleagues from the Ministry of Transportation, when we are discussing the King Alia International Airport and Amman Airport, it is a success story. Of course, the government and the other thing is the allocation of funds. So you have to put your money where you speak. So it's very important thing. So thank you. Now we have based on the experience of the panelists and what are the best for all the panelists to participate in this question. What is the best samples and successful emerging trends in BBB for the transport sector? So based on your experience, what are these emerging trends that you have seen taking place in the transport sector? I would start by Engineer Qais. So please, the floor is yours, Qais.
Ma'am Sophie, thank you very much for your brilliant really glance. I think you put your hand in the place of the pain, and you do another positive thing by suggesting the only treatment for that. Engineer Mohammed, nowadays with this social and technological evolution, if you want to convince people of something new, you have to do everything. Maybe you sometime find you necessary to replace your hair color with a green or yellow to come up with the new things. It's all about the ability to come up with something new and unconventional. I think the PPP can be an effective way to build and implement new infrastructure or to renovate, operate, or maybe manage the existing transport infrastructure facilities. In both areas, PPPs can be a beneficial way to solve a critical transportation problem. Transportation infrastructure such as airports, ports, rail, roads, urban transport is indispensable to sustainable socio-economic development and trade. They link people and regions and connect firms to markets. Efficient transportation infrastructure is a major contributor to enhance productivity. I think the PPP, my opinion, that the effective PPP or priority projects is related to infrastructure and services, mainly in infrastructure. It is anticipated that very significant investment will need to be made in transportation sector in Jordan over the next years to meet the increased demanding arising from population and economic growth. This will entail the construction of a new infrastructure, such as the PRT project, Queen Alia Airport project, the Zarqa and Irbid Airpan project. These important projects could be the solution by saving energy. You know, everybody know that Jordan energy in transport sector is about 49% of the total energy consumption of Jordan. At the same time, improved energy efficiency in the transportation sector will also be a key part of mitigating climate change. This will require innovative solutions and creative solutions, such as, which I will finish by, the climate smart PPPs. The solution is here. Now all of the organization can give you funds or loans if you work the PPP through the environmental dimensions and issues. And this, I think, which we are now working in our strategy. We would like to hear the green hair by environmental dimension in our projects. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much. The smart climate DDBs is a very good strategy, and the successful models that you have mentioned in Jordan are very important, and they will be an excellent example for the investors who are willing to be and to participate in Jordan. And by adding everything about the legislation and the strategy, of course, it is very important also to reduce the risk for the private sector. Whenever you have a risk for the private sector, then most of your projects will be very expensive, and then it will be economically non-viable, and you'll have the overburden over the government will be so much. So of course, there's so many scenarios to mitigate this. We'll discuss this after we hear from our colleague Tamara. Tamara, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Engineer Qais, for your answers. It's very fulfilled. Unfortunately, for the PPP here in Land Transport Commission, we don't have any projects. But as I said, or as my engineer Qais said, we are looking forward to have a BRT PPP partnership. We are working on it. It's going to be to see the lights within and have the tender within this month, by the end of the year maybe. It's going to, as we look as any other partnership, public transport PPP, as the Queen Alia airport. It's a good experience that shows the government it is most important to have a private sector that support public transport projects, is going to go ahead with these investment and to make it to make the economy in Jordan. As you know, we have economic issues here in Jordan. Is going to give them a power to move on and to support it. Here in LTRC, we are working as I said, in a PPP. We don't have any PPP, but it's going to be seen in the BRT. Also, we are thinking about the infrastructure. One of the thoughts that is going, we think about to have a terminal operator is going to have, but it didn't, it's only thoughts. We are thinking maybe in the next steps, we're going to have a private sector that operate a terminal. It's going to organize it. It's going to have electric machines, electric systems in these issues. So we are going to have more supportive, and I think the government is thinking and believe in the PPP partnership. It's a good movement for it, and I hope it's going to see that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tamara. Unfortunately, we are running out of time, but of course, we can have more 5 minutes to complete our discussion and to conclude. Before that, it is very important that in the land transportation sector that we have more projects, and because of the issues that we are now facing, the economical issues that you have talked about, it is very important that the solution will be public-private partnership, and this public-private partnership could be the magical solution for a lot of projects that we can start thinking about, especially for land transportation. Because if we think about what we have now in Jordan in terms of public transportation, we know that for a fact that we have some problems, especially in the main cities, and we hope that we will be able to mitigate these problems in the near future. So finally, before we conclude, I give the floor for Ms. Subi for her remarks on this issue. Thank you. Please, the floor is yours.
That's right. Yeah, sorry, I was muted. Well, first of all, I would like to say thank you very much, and we feel honored. We feel honored to be trusted by Jordan government to work with you. We really see that the big opportunity that, of course, is a big challenge as well. We would like to work with you on many directions, especially when we look into your transport strategy. And as we mentioned earlier, you want to expand on the railway. We certainly have something that AIB has something to offer on the railway side. On also when especially the GCC, I mean connecting to GCC, because we already invested in port, in the Duqm port in Oman. And actually when we invest in Duqm port of Oman, we talk about at that time the GCC railway that go from Oman into Saudi Arabia and then connect to, you know, all those other. But unfortunately that railway did not happen, but because there was something that has not been settled. So when we hear about Jordan want to do another railway, we were excited about it. We would like to say that we also currently was asked to look into King Hussein Bridge. And that could be a PPP. The King Hussein Bridge investment could be a PPP, and we are currently looking at it and would like to have that opportunity to work with you. I can see that Jordan can play a very critical role in being a stability piece of stabilized and good. I mean, we don't want to get into the politics, but in using its location to stabilize the entire investment atmosphere and region in that area. I can see that we want to work with Jordan. We would like to work with Jordan to improve its economy, and also through the economy that it can lead to certain level of stability in that area. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. I think the key word is connectivity. Jordan has a very prime location, and of course the connectivity either through the seaside or the railway or transportation. We have a very prime location in the Levant area, and of course we have the stabilization and the stability of Jordan is very important if we compare it to the other countries in the region. So it is the safe haven to connect to different countries, and of course the connectivity maps between all the countries in the region. I think there's a lot of connectivity maps that have been shared, but the railway project is a very important project for Jordan. But at some stages Jordan decided that maybe because it's a very huge overburden on the government to invest on such project, they decided that at some stages that we can go with internal connectivity between the ports and between the dry ports inside the country. Of course, all of these projects are a success story. The King Hussein Bridge also it talks about the connectivity, and so the connectivity is the key word for the transportation project, and it is one of the most important things. So by this, I would like to thank you and to take some questions from our colleagues here. So we have a question. I think Ms. Subi can answer it. Dear AIIB, what are the most significant energy sector strategies affecting the transport sector? Would you say that electrification is the key transformational activity? I think this is a very excellent question. And the connectivity between the transportation and energy, of course, with the environment is very important. So please, the floor is yours.
Okay, the question is to ask AIB what AIB view of this transport strategy. I would like to say that the person who asked question probably also believe in transport as an engine. I myself believe in transport as an engine of growth. And my experience working with many countries, and I would like to say that I worked in China years ago before come back to work with AIB in China again. And I can say that China at that time, 30 years ago, starting in 1990s, in the 90s, so it's already 3 decades. China has already been always talking about there is a say in China that if you want to think rich, think transport. Meaning that, and this is in everywhere, because you are talking about the small local community. To get their product out of their community, you have to think transport. If you think about the country, you also have to think transport to get the product of the country, go to neighboring countries. So transport is in a way a very boring sector, but it's an important boring sector. However, we cannot do transport the way so we are still talking about transport, but we cannot do the way transport we did 30 years ago. Transport today have to be supplemented with so many other things. Of course, you cannot, as I said, that the demand for transport is never end. It never ends. So you have to bring more than just government sector. You have to think about how to mobilize private capital. That's one. How to use the nowadays digital economy to supplement and transform the transport sector to be even more efficient, even faster in the transport. How to talk about intermodal. I think Madam Secretary General also talked about that, about the integrated intermodality, because nobody can plan only I think I can see China 30 years ago, 25 years ago, still talk about master plan for road, master plan for railway, master plan for port. But no, you cannot do that because everything is a network. You have to have an integrated intermodal master plan. So a lot of things that transport sector can do to the economy and can enhance the economy. It is still focused on transport, but the variation that you can work on transport to enhance its efficiency there are many, and pulling in private sector is very important.
Yes, thank you. I think when we are talking also about the energy, the green energy and the blue energy is a very important strategy and significant important factor that affect the transport sector also. We have another question regarding the involvement of private sector in cross-border investment that are primarily driven by the government and political will. Of course, this is a very important question, and the private sector, of course, the cross-border project by itself, it faces a lot of problems, and if it was not driven by the government and political will, these projects will not see the light. So maybe our colleagues from transportation can help us with this question. So what is the role and how to involve private sector in cross-border investments? What are primarily driven by the government and political will? For example, railway and pipeline. So, Engineer Qais, what do you think?
I think he mute. Qais, I think you mute your microphone. Yes.
Thank you, Engineer Mohammed. I think PPP project is not a monopolistic project for anyone. You know that there's a contracting system that everybody can, through any project, can be tendered, can participate. For the bigger mega projects such as the railway project from Aqaba to Maduna in phase 1 that the government a few days ago launched, I think this type of project cannot be done just through PP project. So I think there's no problem for anyone can implement this type of project or operate this type of project to include through it. This is a governmental procedure, and I think maybe if Engineer Naeem is here, can maybe add more about this project.
Thank you. I think again, the pipeline and the pipeline, I consider pipeline is project is part of the transportation. And of course, if we are going to do cross countries and cross-border projects, the most important thing is to minimize the risk and to minimize the procedures between the governments, and to have framework agreements between the governments at a higher level, and then go to the details in terms of public-private partnership and the participation. Final question for our colleagues in Aiib. A question: what is the mechanism of financing infrastructure projects in Jordan? And this is the hot question for today.
Excuse me, you say it again? What
is the mechanism of financing infrastructure project in Jordan?
What is a mechanism
of financing infrastructure projects in Jordan?
Oh, okay. I think that we would like to, AIB, one thing good about AIB, we're almost like advertising AIB. I would like to say we are very, we are solid, technically solid, but we are very flexible in trying to be innovative. I think that it depends on the project. If you talk only transport, but not just transport, but infrastructure. But now here we are in transport session. For transport project, we'll look into it with you. We'll work with you to see, as you said, actually, you did touch upon a very important part. I think that now I can pronounce our colleague Kais a little bit with more confidence than earlier, that I could not really think that how to pronounce the Q in here. Okay, so I think what our colleague Kai said is right, to say that not every project is suitable for PPP. Certain project may be suitable for PPP. Certain project maybe need more support from the government in there. So from AIB point of view, when we get the project from you, we are looking into it and we say that what would be suitable to use is it going to be a public financing kind of project will be more suitable? Because if you get a project that there is no revenue, it's a lot of social benefit and very difficult to get revenue. Where is the private sector will show up? There will be no private sector will show up. Then the government have to really subsidize, cross-subsidize, and subsidize 3 times. And it may not work. If that is the case, maybe we have to work with you and to make it more public sector project. But if the project is really have a lot of a dimension that we think that we can work with you on the private sector, fully private sector, or public-private partnership, then we can discuss and we can go into that. So I would like to say that AIB has that kind of flexibility built into our system, because we are unlike and no criticism and no negative meaning, because every MDB has its own strength and weakness, and certain MDB, they may have an arm length between public financing and private financing very clear. In our case, because we are under the same roof, I mean, our VP is going to look into public sector deal. Also, the same VP will look into private sector deal. So we have a flexibility when this deal cannot really work out as a private sector. We can look at the modality that make it, whether it can be mobilized as a public sector. So those kind of things that I can say that the mechanism of financing is really, we sometimes have to tailor make. It will not be one size fit or cookie cutter kind of thing. Thank you.
Thank you for the excellent clarification, and of course, as you have stated, it's not all projects can be done through BBB because of the financing and because of the availability of the payments. Because sometimes the government has to pay for the availability of the project and not to get payments from the stakeholders, and the revenues will not be from the project itself. So the government will pay either for the project in an indirect way, or pay for the availability of the service, because the volumes or the project is not sustainable in terms of financial. So thank you for the excellent interventions, for our keynote speakers from Jordan and from AIIB. Thank you for the panelists and for our participants. Thank you for being with us another 20 extra minutes. We're supposed to finish at 11 Jordan time, but we have an extra 20 minutes. So thank you for the panelists and for the keynote speakers. It was an excellent discussion, and of course we hope that we will be able to work together in the next future between Jordan and between AIIB for next transportation projects in terms of maritime, land transportation, railway, and any other transport projects. So thank you, and looking forward to meet you again in person, not online. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We also look forward to it. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.